Hey, another episode of the Crazy People Podcast. Welcome, everybody. Today, J.K. McKnight, Irish Person of the Year. You
That
tell us a little bit.
that gives nothing. That gives absolutely nothing. No, JK's a cool guy, right?
Yeah.
He also comes from the music industry, just like
Mhm.
me. However, he played the actual music. I was just there and watched other people doing the music. He really went into the brand experience, right? Something that my heart was near and dear to for a long time. But oh yeah, he also launched a little tiny local festival over there in Louisville that nobody really heard about. It's just his 75,000 best friends that
Yep.
go there on an annual basis for, what did he say, 17 years?
Yeah.
So,
Just a little fun.
it's actually so small that he created a company to teach other festivals how to do festivaling better, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, he seems to create company, start them up, make them run for a long time, and
Mhm.
create a new one.
J.K.'s an
So
interesting guy. Yes. I
yeah,
mean, serial entrepreneur, but coming out of, I'm a musician,
yeah,
and I think it'd be cool if I could start a festival because I could then set the whole environment and guide the experience and then grow that to massive things. And then branch off and build new things and new things. And our theme for the year, unintentionally, I think, has been AI. And AI
he didn't
sneaks
go
in.
there.
We didn't ask the question.
It was mentioned to us. Could visit.
No, but a killer story. You all are going to enjoy this, dude.
All right, here we go.
Because really, what could go wrong once you press record, right?
Exactly. What could go wrong? It's all going to be very perfect.
Welcome everybody to another episode of Crazy People Doing a Podcast, the Crazy People Podcast. Over here, I'm Russ Broomell. Over on the far side is the captain of curiosity, Maurice Hofmann. In the middle, in the hot seat between us today, J.K. McKnight. Welcome, J.K.
Good to be here, especially with the captain of curiosity.
Well, thanks for coming. I noticed on your LinkedIn profile, you were chosen Irish Person of the Year. Tell us how you got from where you started to where you are today.
So born in Cincinnati, Ohio, into Louisville when I was really young, about 4 years old. My dad was a big advertising, marketing captain of curiosity. Curiosity led him to Louisville where he thought there'd be some great opportunities here. And there was. And he started the first internet marketing agency in Louisville. Our family settled here early 80s, grew up in the Highlands, moved away in college, went to Charleston, South Carolina, studied biology, came back, got in the pre-med program at U of L, was definitely going a much different direction than I currently am today. Ultimately, I've had a lot of passions. Music's certainly been one, and so has conservation, environmentalism, technology, outdoor recreation, and arts, culture, always been there. So yeah, I think most of my life's been just trying to really follow my passion, of which there are probably too many, like juggling every day. But yeah, definitely music was my first passion. I knew when I was 12 or 13 years old that I wanted to do music for my life. But I knew it, felt it throughout my whole body. I have a son now, a 4-year-old, and it's fun watching him get into the same music that I'm into and kind of following a similar trajectory. That led me to creating a festival here called Forecastle Festival that a lot of people know about, an environmental organization called Forecastle Foundation. I started when I was 29, and then that led me ultimately to currently what I do, which is I have an experiential agency called Art of Impact, and we help do festival consulting, experiential marketing, and a technology firm as well called Brand Jam that we're getting ready to roll out here shortly. So, yeah, it's been exciting, been a fun journey, and keep it going.
Cool.
So you kind of inherited the marketing talents from your father?
Father inherited the marketing, the creativity. My dad was a famous copywriter too. I mean, if I went over his many slogans, you would recognize them instantly for, American Airlines and Delta and Lone Star Beer and Procter and Gamble and Cincinnati Reds. And there's so many. So yeah, definitely got my, creative abilities, my writing ability. Writing's been probably the most important thing that I have. And, asset that's helped me get to where I am. But then, that's mixed really equally with my mom, who, you're in Cologne. My mom is a hardcore kind of an industrial German. And, I got my work ethic. I think I got my ability to also have not just a creative brain, but also a very much a COO kind of operational brain as well. Us creatives can come up with ideas constantly, but most of them just fly up there in the ether and never come down. To be able to have a brain that operates in the clouds and the weeds, I think that's where my head always is. It's in the clouds, coming up with ideas, but most of the time I'm down in the weeds actually executing those ideas.
So how did you start your agency? I think it's Out of Impact, right? Did I hear that right?
Yeah, exactly. So I'm happy to explain what that means. But in 2020, I believe, it's about 3.5 years old now. It was
that's
really
the easiest time to start a business.
I launched 3 companies in 5 years.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if that was a good idea, but it's, passions. Entrepreneurs, we kind of chase the chrome squirrel a lot. And it's like, you chase and you guys, okay, so is it still worth it going down, chasing this same thing? Eventually you got to make a decision. But it made sense. So I exited Forecastle in 2018. There was an acquisition in 2016. I actually got completely out of the music industry and everything for 2 years. I worked in private equity. I got to mentor entrepreneurs in a really cool lifestyle-focused portfolio. And that's actually where I got my kind of technology background, was mentoring a tech firm here, a data company here in Louisville, helping them build their brand. But when I got done with those 2 years, I definitely had the itch to kind of get back, not just into the experiential community, but also wanting to help others, help festival founders dream and do. I was a dreamer and then a doer, and I got to do with the festival from base camp all the way up to the summit of freaking Mount Everest. So I knew the route, and then it felt natural to me to teach others how to do that route. I always think of building a business, I always think of mountain metaphors constantly. But so it was just a very natural thing. And also, my mom worked in sponsorship development her whole life. I've spent certainly the majority of my career in sponsorship development, because when you're designing a festival, you need sponsors. They're the number one source of ancillary revenue. Experiential marketing really was an outcrop of all the work I had done working with brands, sponsors in the festival world for, at that point, 15 years. So that was something where I wanted to help brands kind of find their super fans inside festivals, define the strategy, pick the right festivals, activate the right way, engage the right way, and convert those fans into lifelong ambassadors. Both of those work kind of hand in hand, but 2 different clientele. One is festival founders, one is MOs and marketing directors.
That's super interesting, because I see so many parallels. I, for one, started in the music industry too. I worked in music television for a long time. Then from there, going to New York all the time, we saw Def Jam, street promotion, and we're like, oh, you got to bring this to Germany, right? And then we out of the production company, we created an agency and labeled that agency a brand experience marketing agency. Because we thought just hitting people over the head with anything really didn't work. You had to make it to feel the brand, experience the brand, really live the brand to really be receptive to the message, right?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And that's where marketing has gone, connect where they connect the way they want to be connected with. You look at Gen Z, millennials, they spend 84% of their discretionary income on experiences. What you just said is kind of what was a little bit of the light bulb for me of doing Art of Impact. Is it was, obviously I wanted to give back. I wanted to help festival founders. I wanted to help brands. But there was also this very unique engagement model of, where do you find this audience? Where do you find Gen Z? Where do you find young millennials? Well, you find them at festivals in the highest concentration. You engage with them through experiential marketing. That's where brands and fans meet on site at festivals. And you actually deliver them through social impact. The social impact is actually what we ingrain into all our festival development and experiential marketing services, because it's so important to have that social impact strategy embedded into everything you do as a brand. And I believe a festival founder too. If you look at the festivals that are doing the best, the ones that are very community focused, that are very much paying it forward, I think are the ones that sustain themselves and ultimately go the distance. It was kind of the Art of Impact really was a 3-tiered model. Festivals where you find them, experiential marketing's how you engage with them, and social impact's how you deliver them. So it's been really cool kind of implementing that model throughout the country.
The social impact part, I think, is very interesting because I think it's a rather new approach. Because might be a little older than you are. When we did this in the early 2000s, and we did the younger generation back then, the social impact didn't have to be there. It was enough to entertain them and catch them where they wanted to be entertained, right? Didn't have to deliver the higher value and whatever. Nobody cared back then, right?
Yeah, unfortunately, the world is
So
a
that's
more perilous position today than it was 25
Yeah.
years ago. Part of the success of Forecastle certainly can be traced back to roots in social impact. We were the first festival in the country to market environmentalism, environmental activism as a core programming pillar. No festival had ever done that before. It was always kind of like you were speaking to Maurice, it was always on the side. It was a sideshow, it was something, here's some vendor booths, whatever. We really took it to a completely different level. Forecastle and constantly challenged the status quo on, what could we do here in Kentucky, that no other festival, definitely in this state, but ideally in the country, has ever done before. We had so many incredible examples of that.
So how did you go about starting the festival? So we started at present, and now we are backing into.
Yeah,
Zoom out.
we've been down a lot of rabbit holes. How did I start the festival? So I failed to mention this in the bio earlier, but I was an independent musician actually for 6 years. So before I started festivals, I was about 18 is when I got real serious about it, started recording professionally and touring and just living that crazy, this is the crazy podcast, crazy lifestyle. And it was a crazy lifestyle. So
Kind of music?
oh gosh, it shifted, man. I started up in really kind of indie rock music and then went solo kind of folk experimental music, all with kind of pop overlays, threading the need so it was actually listenable. But so I did that for like 6 years. I mean, I buried my, everyone else was kind of in college, and I was in college but dropped out after my sophomore year because I really just wanted to do music. There's nothing in the academic world that I felt was going to teach me how to be a successful musician more than just going out and doing it by myself, which is, I think most entrepreneurs feel that way. So I dropped out my sophomore year, and it was crazy. I lived in this. You've seen the movie Fight Club before? Has everyone seen that movie?
Mhm.
I lived in like the Fight Club house on 20 Person Round in Louisville and Portland, deep in Portland. I think I was living on like $5,000 a year or something, and it was definitely well below the poverty line, even way back then. But it was great because I could do whatever I wanted to do. Not having being able to subsidize my income to like just barely anything allowed me the freedom of time, and I think that's something that as you get older, they always say, when you're young, you have no money, but you have lots of time. You get older, you get money, but you have no time.
True.
Like, I wish I knew that. But I promise this is all going to circle back to your question there.
It's
So-
fine. It's fine.
Well,
Keep
I
up.
was always, being being that marketing creative mind, I was always searching for new platforms and new avenues to express my music, push my brand, discover new fans, and no different than when you're doing a startup, you're doing a product company, a service company, you're doing the same thing. And festivals to me, it seemed like a great platform to do that because like I could pick the venue and I could book all the artists and I could headline it and I could like find all the promotional materials and do a PR strategy around it and like, become a focal point early on that, could help propel my career to where I was trying to go. So really it began almost as a small piece of a much bigger independent music, musician strategy. But then when I did it the first year, first off, part of the strategy failed because nobody came to the first one or really the first 3, even though everybody says that they didn't. Not a week goes by and someone doesn't tell me they were at the first Forecastle. But so it started again. It was just a concert. The first festival was nothing more than the 10,000 other kind of community concerts you see throughout the year hosted in a city park. I mean, it was it was different. But even though there were no people there, and I think the number of the bands probably outweighed the number of attend audience. You're looking out, you just see all your friends. Even though that, I don't know, there was a magic in the air. There was a vibe. There was just something in the air. Promise I hadn't taken anything or, done anything illegal, but there was just a vibe, man. And it was just powerful to me. It was just potent. It was powerful. I've always been able to kind of see around the corner, and I just saw around the corner that this was something that has a lot of potential. In Louisville, didn't have anything like it. I always mentoring entrepreneurs talk about, find a gap in the market, find a market in the gap. I clearly had found one on that day. So the second year really became about adding on to it. And I thought, going back, I was like 20 years old. So I'm trying to remember how I was thinking, but I think I thought like, there's, I have so many friends in the arts community in Louisville, and so many passion in the environmental community. Why are those groups not invited? Those groups would actually go very nicely together.
Yeah.
Why don't we just not invite them, but why don't we give them a whole third of the festival? Yeah. It seemed to make sense in the mind of a 21-year-old dropout. So I did in that second year. I mean, proof of concept, the audience tripled in size. The budget stayed the same, probably around $500 or, something like that. The budget stayed the same. The audience tripled. So I knew, I still remember being up on a hill in Tyler Park and just looking at my buddy Mike and just looking at each other and being like, this has got legs. We should now do it. So I was still committed to doing my music career. But then in 2005, this horrible flood happened. We had days and days of rain, and my studio, which is basically my home at that point, was kind of living down there. Distillery Commons, that old whiskey distillery next to the Headliners Music Hall, the whole basement flooded. So I was down there with it was a big storage unit, boats and cars and all this stuff. And I had a 30 by 30 space with stage I had built, and amps were everywhere. My whole world domination plan was all over the walls, And I came down there one day, and it was pitch black, and there was oil everywhere and gasoline. And my buddy who was a Marine had to come down with gas masks, and we had to dig every little piece of everything I had, vintage guitars, amps, my whole life basically was down there. So we had to pull all that out. And it was kind of cool because for a couple of months I moved out. I was living in my parents' house, and it looked like a really cool art exhibit because we hung everything up on string.
Yeah.
This is the Crazy People podcast, right? This is I get to talk about all the craziness. Yeah, it looks like people would drive by and be like, "What the hell is that?" I mean, it's just crazy. Lyrics hanging up everywhere on drawstrings, laundry.
Yeah.
But we recovered everything. But also, I basically had no home. Basically homeless at that point because my studio's gone. That's where I spend all my time, except for the few hours I was sleeping. So yeah, you kind of forced a decision. It was like a big fork in the road. Do I keep doing the music stuff, which is where my heart was, or do I get more head, which is to do this festival thing? So I think I picked the right decision.
Well, yeah.
Looks
like it worked out.
So disaster leads to something way better. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's true for life. I tell people that all the time. Don't fear failure. Don't be scared about. You learn a lot more at the bottom of the mountain than you ever do the top.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. That's funny. I bet the first festival though still felt amazing because I've been in a situation like that where we organized a tour with a big American DJ, right? For 4 cities in Germany. And the first stop in Hamburg, we just invited the crowd to come on the stage because those two guys also had enough space on stage, and we just partied on stage all together.
Nice.
But you know what? That was the most fun of all 4 tour dates, even though the others were packed and whatever. The Hamburg one was the one where we all had the most fun. Because we just celebrated.
I
right?
had the same story. So in 2008, we had this headliner called Girl Talk that it's kind of a household name now, but this was Girl Talk's first headlining show. He had just dropped out of college, biomedical engineering, which ironically is what I was going into. And I remember, yeah, he invited the whole stage, everyone in the audience up on stage in one moment. And it was one of the best moments I can ever remember of the festival was that moment. It
Yeah.
was also one of the scariest because the stage started like bowing, like more. And I'll never forget Billy Hardizan from Production Simple, who was doing our production, just screaming at everyone at one point, like, get off the stage, it's going to break. You know, like it was just, like going up and down.
Yeah, what's the worst that could happen? Oh, yikes, guys! Everybody, oh, hang on.
I have hundreds of stories like that, but that reminds me of that.
Yeah, we didn't have that problem. We were 10 people on stage. The stage was like, oh, that's it?
Yeah.
Bring it on.
This was probably 100 and something people on stage.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
It was
That's
crazy,
where it's serious.
to say the least.
So did you ever think about, I mean, eventually you made it part of your agency, but you ever thought about branching or franchising out the festival idea and have the festival go on tour to other areas?
So we never thought about it, but everybody else thought about it. We got asked that every single year for like 6 years. Yeah, I think, it was always kind of a moot point because so much of the festival was built around the very distinct identity and DNA of Kentucky, especially if you look at those waterfront years. I mean, I looked at my job as how do we, my job wasn't like, how do we find the best bands or sign the best brands? It was like, how do we roll out a red carpet for, the Gen Z millennial at that point audience, flying in from, 2,400 cities and 16 countries and 49 states. It was always 49 states. It was never fit. It can never be like North Dakota would screw it up or Idaho or something. I was like, 2 Dakotas. I was just to think about that. Anyway, but not to throw shade on North Dakota. I'm sure there's good stuff there, but yeah, it always, when you walk in Forecastle, I had a very specific vision, and obviously that vision was nautical. I mean, Forecastle is a nautical theme. It's a part of a ship where people hang out after working all day and relax and enjoy, get to know each other. That's the forecastle of of things. So I wanted, not only did I want people to feel like they were coming up on a ship and getting to hang out in the forecastle and enjoy, 60,000 other like-minded people, but, I wanted people from outside the market, which was a majority, to experience what we love about Kentucky every day in the market, so that's why you had, 15,000 square foot bourbon lodge that, no one had ever done before. You had, the Hunter S. Thompson Museum and Speakeasy, and you had Party Cove, and you had the Belle Louisville, and you had, the Kentucky Landing and like Port Stage. I mean, you couldn't go anywhere without seeing authentic Kentucky culture bearers, which that to me is what you want. And it's probably a little ahead of its time, but now you see that everywhere. I mean, now if you're going to be a successful contemporary festival, like that's a prerequisite.
Yeah, one of the things that people don't know about Louisville if they haven't been here, and I think Forecastle in some of its heyday really highlighted, we have, the Ohio River runs, the town's up against the Ohio River. And somewhere back in history, before I moved here, they took big chunks of the riverfront and converted them into parks. And so you have we have what's called the Great Lawn, because it's just a big lawn down by the water. But, you could have people come into town and you've got the beautiful river is there and the city is as a backdrop, and you have this great festival and everybody's doing stuff. And there's a whole part of the waterfront there where many cities kind of build right up to it. And Louisville, for whatever reason, probably tore down some factories and shipping locations that were along the river and just made it grass and made it walkable, and you can walk it, and hang out down there. It's a different experience, I think, too, in the city. But also then you layer in Kentucky's known for bourbon and all this kind of stuff. And Hunter S. Thompson, grew up here and all these kinds of things. And you give somebody, I think you're right, JK, this experience that that nobody else has. And that, to your point, Maurice, that's hard to franchise. That's hard to shift somewhere else. Like you'd have to figure out all those little things for Seattle or whatever, right? And try to build them back in. It'd be weird.
Yeah, and that's the hard thing about hard things, when it comes to designing a successful festival, is it's a lot of hard work. That's a lot of relationships you have to forge, and that's a lot of people that you have to activate, and that's a lot of time that you just got to spend procuring that experience. It's like, it's not easy, and it's not something that you really see much a lot of times, especially with a lot of the bigger festivals these days. I mean, a lot have shifted and moved towards a very specific model, which is a model I understand because it's just the economics of it. Festivals have gotten so much more expensive to produce, as has everything. But it's, it was always very clear to me that you needed to be hyper local, with the experience. And of course, you mix that hyper local recipe ingredient with, national acts and things that draw a lot of people. But I always tell people it was, over time, it was never, the Tame Impalas and the Outcasts and Wilcos. And I mean, there's 700 artists that perform. It was really the promise of an authentic Kentucky experience. That is really what sold it. You don't buy a ticket to the Derby because, hey, I want to go see that horse run. You buy it because of all, the fashion and the excitement and the spirits and the parties and et cetera. And that's no different than what we try to accomplish with Forecastle.
So how do you teach that to other people who want to organize a festival too? Because that is, as far as I could see on your webpage, that is part of your services, right? That you have other people or other groups to do it themselves?
So I'll give a very honest answer to that. It's very challenging. So the need is great. We've consulted all over the world. I mean, England, LA to Miami and Austin, and most of our work is outside Kentucky. The need is great because it's such a murky world. You don't go to college and, okay, here's how to design a successful festival. No one teaches that curriculum. Curriculum's constantly changing, like technology. I remember, I was Elon Musk. Someone said one time, like, you're not even going to need to go to school anymore. You'll be able to figure it all out on your iPad at a young age. But like, there's certain truths to that, and just how fast things move these days, and how difficult it's to keep up. So, to answer your question, our core curriculum really revolves around 9 festival development steps. It starts with branding, it ends with production. But when we engage with festivals, and whether they're new festivals or they're developing festivals or they're veteran festivals looking to get young again, we go through every one of those steps with them, and we really look under the hood to see, what they're doing right and what they're doing, not so right, and what could be improved to help them become more relevant. Because a lot of times it really, this is pop culture world. Like, it's about being relevant, it's about being valuable. Every business is about delivering value. So it's us really putting a festival under a microscope, and very quickly, it doesn't take long, we can see, where the gaps and constraints and challenges exist.
And also where the essence is, right? I can imagine, like, what really makes it, especially if it is an existing festival that kind of lost their flow a little bit. It's going back to finding the essence, what used to make them great, right?
Exactly, yeah. The veteran festivals are definitely an interesting one, because you want to maintain, you got to have this balance between maintaining the loyalty that exists. Like, we just finished up a festival in North Carolina, and it's been around for decades. You don't want to lose what they cultivated. At the same point, they cannot grow with the audience that has been cultivated. They got to cast the net wider. So yeah, that's usually a big thing that we focus on, is just how to draw, the best quality and quantity, audience that you can to accomplish what you're trying to achieve. I'll say this too. One of the things you said, first question, how do you do it? Well, I will say, as I found in 3 years, simply providing the route doesn't guarantee, that the festival producer follow that route.
Yeah.
Number one. they're all creative, crazy individuals by and large to take on an endeavor like that. But also that they have the mental fortitude and physical energy to carry through, because a lot of people, go from base camp. There's a lot of people in base camp, a lot of idea people, a lot of them. The ones that actually go from the idea to actually getting up on the big wall, that cuts out like 90% of them. And then the ones that get on the big wall and the ones that actually make it, like, not even to the summit, but, kind of the last push, as we like to say in alpinist climbing world, that'll cut down that other 10% by another 90%. So that's something I've found too, is it's great being a resource. It's great being a climbing guide, but that doesn't guarantee that every festival is going to be able to accomplish, what we accomplished with Forecastle.
That's what I find too. And I did do festivals, right? But I consulted a lot of companies, and it's sometimes they want to skip steps. They don't have the patience to hang in there and go through all the little steps, because all those steps made sense, right? That's why you got there where you wanted to go. But the patience isn't there anymore, and the focus is not there.
It's definitely not there. It's micro steps. Like, I shared this with my brand jam, my tech team the other day, that, ultimately, everyone wants the big hooray, high five, milestone moments. But what everyone who, doesn't run a business every day, a lot of times doesn't understand, is that all of those milestones are created by all these little micro actions that happen every single day. George Fisher here, the late George Fisher, used to always tell me, JK, an inch is a cinch, a yard is hard. He was one of my mentors of many, and there's a lot of truth to that. You got to come into work every day with a bar that's set very high if you want to be successful. 95% of startups will fail. Fortunately, knock on wood, I haven't had one fail yet. I'm on my fifth. But you really gotta, it's like Alabama football or something like that. You gotta just set the bar somewhere, and you don't go below it it's a 1-day contract, every single day. So you have to have that attitude, and just in the world that we live in today, so many people want to do everything they can to automate, that, to find a shortcut to. I've never been in a time in our world that I see so many people trying to take the easiest routes. And very rarely, if ever, is the easiest route the best route. It's wild, man. Like, people are afraid of conflict. They don't want to. People want 1 foot in, they want 1 foot out. They want to have their cake, they want to eat it. It's just, I don't know. I'm speaking, I know, more like a boomer probably now, or like Jen. But like, it's true. It's like,
All right, those kids better get off my lawn.
Those kids were allowed. And I say that, like, we have 2 interns in the office right now that are just killing it. I mean, they're just so passionate, hungry, and they're like building all this new technology for us every day that no one's ever used before. I mean, it's just awesome. So by no means is that like a blanket statement, but I never saw a lot of that when I was growing up. I don't know. Maybe I just surrounded myself with people that were, willing to sacrifice as much as I was. But I definitely think technology has planted a seed in a lot of young people, especially in their head, that you can skip around a lot of, necessities. It's not always it's the steps, like you said, Maurice, but it's also the order and sequence of said steps. That is another issue that I see when I'm doing festival consulting, or whether I'm just mentoring entrepreneurs. Like, they want to jump into steps that they are not at all prepared to do. And a lot of that's just because, they don't know what they don't know.
Yeah, well, it's easy too when you're online, because you can just, I'll just click on this next thing, and I'll just click on that thing, and it'll be fine, and we'll figure it out as we go. But in reality, when you're dealing with real people and real facilities and real bands and you can't skip over.
Yeah, no, you can't. And it scares me a bit, the more and more people that adopt that kind of thinking, like Google is, like there's artists that, Google's our brain, and Facebooks are hard, and like they took the whole world into like 5 companies and like our organ systems. I thought it was, but yeah, it scares me because it's like, let's just take festival world, but it applies to all business world too. But like, when let's talk about more crazy things. So when Sam Smith played the festival in 2015, I think, I don't know, 2015, something like that. But yeah, Sam was one of the biggest pop stars in the world, just won all the Grammys and the cover of Rolling Stone. We were the first performance back from like an 18-month vocal surgery rest period for him. And all this media was here. His family flew in from England. Everyone's here. And he got through like 30, 35, 40 minutes of a set. And all of a sudden, like the weather went from like just beautiful and perfect. And, it was like 78 degrees on the waterfront, which it never is in summer. And it just all of a sudden, 80-mile-per-hour winds, hit the site within, we had minutes to get 10,000 people off the site safely.
Oh, wow.
Which we did. And we won a big award for it. But how do there's no, okay, I'm going to go look in Google for, how to go ahead and evacuate 10,000 people in 10 minutes. Like there's nothing, like that's what I'm saying. Like you got to be able to think for yourself and just be thrown into a lot of situations, in order to figure, find your way out of them, and I have the confidence, to do so.
It's a funny discussion that I had that today, actually, with a former marketer, that you said it, the automation that everybody wants to do, right? To create a shortcut. I actually don't think it's a generational issue. I think it's just everyone, right? Tries to utilize whatever the technology is and just be lazy with it and just utilize it and just throw everything in there and expects to win at the other end of it. But that's not how it works. You cannot, it's still before you want to run, right? You have to learn to walk first. And before the walking comes the crawling or some form of it. That's still the order. It doesn't change no matter how much technology you put in there, right?
Right. Exactly.
And
I mean, I'm all about doing more with less. So, I should probably be using AI more, in the stuff I do every day. But at the same point, we got to realize that it's the information that's out there, it's just compiling, which may be right, but there's a lot of instances where it's wrong, and so I think it'll get better. And I mean, the latest chat GDP, is pretty damn accurate, but, as a creative person, as someone who, is constantly trying to push the envelope and bring new things into the world and, and bring those ideas to market and climb that mountain. Yeah, it's a tool, but it's one of many tools. I would never just use that one tool.
Yeah, I think, as you said, JK, earlier, that, if you just try to get something off the ground, 90% of people won't get that far. And if you try to get toward the summit, 90% of those that are left won't get that far. And so if you're trying to use a tool that is sort of the average of the internet, I'm sure there's applications for it. There absolutely are, but that's not I'm trying to build a business, a festival, a restaurant, whatever it is, that the 1% that actually survives and thrives.
Are you telling me there's not an app for that?
Yeah. There, build the 1%, click. Oh, that's fine. It's great now. Thank you. All done. Yeah, it's tough, but also I think, to your point, JK, is that generations who have grown up with the technology. I grew up with a black and white TV 100 million years ago. But kids who have started with a phone from the day they were born, they just don't. They understand, like Maurice said. There's an app. It'll figure it out. It'll be great. I don't have to work those hard things, right?
Yeah. There's a great YouTube video everyone should check out. It's called I think it's called the Millennial Farmer. It was like a parody video 100 years ago, like mocking a young millennial farmer who came on to do some summer work. It's hilarious. If you can find it online, you'll crack up. But yeah, it's tough. I always feel like it's easier than ever to start a business, but it's harder than ever to run it successfully. I think we deal with a lot of big people problems in this world today. People are so, hyper individualistic today. Everyone wants to work from home. Everyone wants to automate. Everyone wants to make bigger salaries. What scares me about technology is it can be such a divider. As much as it's been a uniter in being able to communicate, the level of communication has become so trite, and I just wonder when we're going to get to a point where that like the circle like come around, like people want to. I mean, you see that post COVID, but it's like, I don't know. I know, and I talk to other business owners and friends of mine, colleagues in the entrepreneurial community. It's a big problem. People are too siloed, and even if they're right in front of you, doesn't mean that they aren't totally siloed. So it's a challenge for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you work around it? As somebody who has recently or over the years founded several companies, how do you face that challenge for yourself, for your own company right now?
Yeah, it's just you just have as few people as possible.
Automate everything.
Automate everything.
Small
Machines
team, passionate group. There you go.
all over the office here. I haven't figured that one out. One thing I've learned myself in 5 companies is, again, being a guy who's in the clouds or in the weeds, I'm not the good in the middle. Man, people on a day-to-day basis, which is, what keeps the flywheel turning. It's definitely not my specialty, but I will say this. I mean, I've always gone where other people don't go. A friend of mine, Charlie Miller, always tells me, the best problem's a problem that hasn't been solved. And so I've always problems that haven't been solved. And that always attracts other people who also want to solve big problems in unique, innovative ways. So a lot of times, I've just been fortunate because I've picked industries and picked spaces that no one else is occupying, that I've been able to attract people that are just really passionate and really want to solve problems. And that's why I think I've been able to build really good teams from that.
So there's never self-doubt, never the idea that you think like, holy moly, I've just touched something that's not going to work.
No, I mean, I haven't had a failed company yet. I mean, I have a lot of ideas. I'm sure I have a ton of ideas that would totally fail if I ever did them. But Gil Holland once told me, JK, just because you have an idea doesn't mean you're the person to do it. And so I think about that constantly when I want to jump into a space. My track record right now with companies is very long and very deep and very broad. I mean, Forecastle is a 17-year career. Foundation still in existence, 15 years. Art of Impact's going on multiple years. So, I'm always in it for the long haul because I know that there's a lot of bumps in the road, and I'm always, I make sure that I pick ventures that I know I can stick with, so they become a big bureaucracy, and then I want to run for the hills and start small. And they all grow,
So what is the
form this prison that end up somehow I go always from the top of the heap to the prison, and then I lose the keys once I'm in the prison, and then I have to always figure out how do I get out of this thing, because I've lost passion for it, or I'm ready to go chase the next crumb squirrel.
Yeah. I had a company really fail, and that is we founded a company to market patents in the green energy, alternative energy sector.
Sure.
Everything went fine. Then 3 months later, that was in 2008, the 2 biggest companies that worked with patents in Germany, the one was charged with 300 million, the other was 200 million capital in there. They both went belly up.
Wow.
And then funny enough, nobody wanted to invest in our startup anymore. Funny how that works. That's a good way to fail. Have the 2 biggest company in that sector go broke.
Yeah.
That had.
And then the fuel's gone and the car stopped.
Yep.
I think I've bootstrapped every company I've done, including my latest one. So, but not every company can be bootstrapped. So I definitely relate to that. There's definitely exponential more ways that you can fail than succeed when you're
Yeah.
starting.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest ones that no one talks about, I feel like they don't talk about as much, is timing. I mean, timing to me is, if it's not number 2 or 3, it's no lower than 3 on the totem pole. I mean, it's so incredibly important. So there's endless stories of great products, great services that just hit the market at the wrong time and ran out of fuel to do them.
Yeah, well, there's also a cycle time too, right? Because you can hit it at the right time and be going up, but then at some point, that cycle has passed, and you either reimagine and head up again, or you just to the top off.
Innovation's the lifeblood of a business. I mean, you've got to be your founders have got to be innovative. They got to be able, because there's no place for complacency. It's a moving. You can't be neutral on a moving train. Quote the late.
That's nice. So what is the next big step that you're heading for?
Yeah, so the next big step for me is a company called Brand Jam. I started 2 years ago, and we're getting to go to market with that here over the summer. But it's a beverage alcohol technology company. It's pretty cool, and it goes back to what we were talking about, the marketing mind and trying to come up with great engagement models. And how do you do that? Well, bev alc is an industry that, very much like tobacco and firearms, et cetera, it's really been starved off from a lot of very key information that really could drive and align the entire industry. So this company has been really dedicated to chipping away at one piece, that data information puzzle that can really bring great intelligence to an industry that is very important to Kentucky, very near and dear to my heart. Another passion. I've always had a great passion in the beverage alcohol world. I have so many great friends there. They'd be 53% of our sponsorship budget. We wouldn't exist with those Sierra Nevadas and those Tito's and Heinekens and, so many companies that I worked with. But yeah, so data company, but it really focuses on a profitable solution to a very expensive problem that has been acquiring the right information that you need at a time when there's more beverage alcohol brands than ever has been in history. And there's less shelf space than ever has been in history. So we're tackling that from the experiential side, which is really cool. And, we'll have a lot more on that certainly the next time we speak. But it's been cool. We have about 8 or 9 clients right now, which is good for not having really announced anything about it or put anything out there.
It's not too bad.
It's not bad. No, it's not bad. We've been 2 years. We've really been a big just research and development side for 2 years, really just trying to, a lot of customer discovery, a lot of just getting early MVP, models out to early adopters. And then, lean startup model, testing, learning, iterating, improving. So yeah, so that's my next venture. And then, Art of Impact, I think I'll do as I can, until I'm totally old hat and no one wants to listen to anything because they can just go to ChatGPT and try to figure it out.
Well, you joke about that, right? I just yesterday heard from another company that essentially fired their entire marketing team and said, no, we're going to do it with AI now, right? Which is ridiculous, but that's the 4th or 5th company here in Germany that I heard of that are essentially firing their marketing team and just want to do it automated, right?
Yeah, you're seeing that too. I mean, with data engineers, that was, years ago. I mean, they're at the top of the heap, but you're seeing a big wave of layoffs right now, and people that, write code and design code, and do that. So it's crazy. I mean, I think, it'll be interesting, again, to kind of project, where that base goes, and I think it's scary too, because, you have people that, been, probably still in college debt, paying off college debt and stuff to really learn a very key skill set. And, how would you feel if, one day your company says, okay, we don't need that skill set or anyone else with your skill set because we're going to AI the entire thing. I think it's a scary place. I think certainly in all of us entrepreneurs and you can't help but, I feel like our brains are also so wired to efficiency. Yeah. So it's like, I thought up an idea the other day that I got so excited about, and nothing I would ever do, but it's just like, but then I realized that like, if the idea was come to fruition, like it could wipe out a whole section of the service industry, if the thing was to ever happen. And of course, I asked one of my friends in the service industry about it, and they're like, "Oh no, that product does exist, but it only exists in this like one sphere, and take it to other spheres, and maybe it would have the effect that you're worried about." But
Yeah.
yeah, it's certainly a scary time, with respect to that.
All right. Russ already knows it. The final question.
Hard pivot.
We have 5 dinner guests, dead or alive. It's absolutely up to you. Who you're inviting, except yourself.
Dead or alive? 5? What were 5 to 10? Oh, only like 5 people. Okay, these are people I know, or I can invite like anyone I want.
Anybody.
Anyone.
Anybody, anywhere, anytime.
Anywhere, anyone. If there's 5 people I'd want. Oh man,
Gonna sit down and have dinner with them. What do you think?
yeah. I mean, honestly, I wouldn't go very far. Like I have this very core group of like, 8 or 9 guys that like I check in with like every week. I think everyone needs to have 2 or 3 people that they confide in and they talk to consistently. And I'd probably, it's rare that I ever get that consortium together. Like maybe couple times a year I see these because they're all from like different social groups. So yeah, to me it'd be getting those people together. Some folks in my family. I know you probably thought like Forecastle guy's gonna have like some celebrity ideas on that.
It doesn't matter who you take, but there's one condition. I need names. So you need to name a name, and while you're choosing it doesn't have to, if it is people that you know, it doesn't have to be first and last name. But give me a name and why that person.
Okay.
So there's rules to this. We're not totally
rules. Okay, all right.
He's a German guy. He's got to have the rules, right?
So first on my list, but my buddy. Hold on, wait a second. What did you say happens after you invite these people? Like you go away after, like you die?
You're having dinner. Just having dinner.
You're having dinner. That's
around
it.
the table having dinner.
Okay. So
Before dinner.
The eve of like a nuclear winter or something, right?
No.
I don't know.
5 people to be in the bunker with you. No, it's not about that.
And that's what I thought. That seemed.
That would be a follow-up question.
That's a whole other question, Maurice. We got to think about that one.
That seems my answer. So, okay, well, I see those guys every week, so I'm just going to kick them out of the question. So, I feel, Eddie Vedder would be someone I've always wanted to reconnect with. Met him when I was 13. Definitely someone who inspired me to do what I currently do. So, and actually, I'll be seeing him in August. So, that is one person though that jumps right out in my mind. One is my good friend Kat, theologist, mother of Jim James from My Morning Jacket, who I've been trying to reconnect with now for a couple of years. But she was instrumental when I was in believing in me. When no one else believed in me, she believed in me, and she also somehow predicted all these things that actually ended up happening to me, like big life things. Like she's ability. I don't know if she spreads that fairy dust on many people, but she did it on me and definitely led me on a great road. So she's definitely one that comes to mind. My buddy Eric McCauley, got to give him a shout out just because there's. Yeah, you meet people in life who make you feel the way you want to feel. It's almost like taking a drug or something. Like they make you feel a certain thing that no one else can get you to feel. He's definitely one of those people to me. Another one, while he's still, his birthday is today, so I'll give him a shout out for that. Brian Wilson has always been someone I've wanted to meet, hang out with. Took my parents to see him a couple years ago at the Ryman. But someone that really inspired me, the first one that captivated my curiosity, going back to Maurice's The Captain of Curiosity. That's who really, his arrangement, everyone knows Brian was, founding member of the Beach Boys. Like his arrangements, his songwriting, his ability to take all these voices in this band and just, create their beautiful tapestry of music. Certainly just propelled me into a different stratosphere when I was a kid, and it was a place that I found sanctuary in. So he's definitely one of them. And then drum roll. I got one more. Here would be the fifth person on that list. Jeez. Who would be the fifth one on the, you know what? We need some female representation here. So I'd put my mom on that list. We talk every day. We share a big portion of the same brain, but she'd have to be there too. You know, she's someone I always like to take out to whenever I have a chance.
That's awesome.
That she'd be on that list too. So there you go.
Right. That's an awesome list, and it's unique. We never had a list like that, right? Usually
Right,
it's the big names, the Obamas, the Newton, former presidents, music artists.
Yeah. Nothing
That is
I'll ever
definitely
say
something.
or come up with is going to be like middle of the road. I left for middle of the road a long time ago. There was a time when like the highway when I was in college, like get that pre-med degree, get that degree, JK, and it will lead you to here. You can see it. You can see it on the highway. You can see where that you're going. No, I steered off that, veered off that, you know, decades ago, and I never got. And I just went deeper and deeper, and I'm still going deeper.
Hey,
So
off-roading can be fun. There you go.
it's scary. Yeah, it's fun. It's fun.
Everything that's there is fun.
You got to. I mean, I think if you're an entrepreneur, like you can't be. It's Greg Fisher used to tell me. It's like entrepreneurs they don't look at the 99 ways something will fail. They always just look at the one reason it will work, which is delusional.
Yeah.
But it's delusional most of the time. But, you know, entrepreneurs just have a much different risk assessment, gauge in their mind. So,
Yeah.
in their mind.
Absolutely.
Stuff.
HK, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on.
100%.
Time flew by.
I appreciate it. This is
absolutely did.
awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Appreciate you coming on. And for everybody else, please stay tuned. Come back here so that you can meet the next crazy person. And with us, you never know who it's going to be, right? And which industry it's going to be from. So stay tuned.